go through the process of finding out what's standing in the way of that, the people in your life, the nemesis, the one thing that you tell everybody is the reason why you can't do the thing that you most want to do. It's usually because you can't afford it, because you've been told you have to do something else, because you grew up in an environment where you weren't allowed to speak your truth.
Today's guest is Emily Pattullo, creative coach, award-winning author, musician, creator of the 12 Steps of a Fulfilling Life. Welcome, Emily.
So much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So with that said, what is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
Probably isn't very significant to anybody else, but for me, courage is doing things that I find scary for myself. So for me, something that I found really scary when I was younger was doing music, playing music in public and putting my music out there. And it's something I recently have released a song. And for me, after what would have been 25 years avoiding doing it, that's a big, courageous deal for me.
Take us back to 25 years. What happened in your life when you were pursuing music in London?
Well, I was in my late teens and I started playing around with the guitar and writing songs, and I've always been able to sing. So I just started doing it, and I had this burning desire to become a recording artist, become a musician. And so I took my guitar and myself and I moved from the depths of the English countryside up to London, where I got whatever job I could get and in the daytime, and started playing in smoky bars in and around London just to get my music heard, to get myself out there. But aside from the determination I had to write and sing and play music, I found the actual standing up in front of people and being in the limelight, as it were, terrifying. And so I did it a few times, and then I found it too hard to bear. So I gave it up. And since then, I have avoided doing music and avoided doing anything to do with writing until a few years ago, when I landed in New Zealand and took it back up again. And I recently released the song 25 years later that I never released then.
Wow. How courageous is that?
Thank you.
You have openly shared that fear causes you to walk away from dreams. What fears were showing up for you at that time?
It was really about being judged. It was about putting myself out there in front of people. When you create something, whatever that is, it's like standing naked in front of people and asking them to give their opinion on you and your heartfelt words and your voice and whatever it is that you choose to put out into the world. And in that young age, I just found that very confronting.
At 52, you released your debut single. What has that experience taught you about never being too late to follow your dreams?
Well, I started exploring quite a few years ago now what the point was of being here. And I decided quite early on that to get a 9-to-5 job and a mortgage and those kind of everyday things, only to retire and wait to die, was really not what inspired me to be here. So I started to explore alternatives. What actually is the purpose? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Like lots of people do at various points in their life. And 6 years ago, I moved my family from the UK to New Zealand 3 weeks before the first lockdown. And that experience in itself, being introduced to a new country on the other side of the world, and in a time like that when everything was so uncertain, was like the kick in the bum that I needed to just do those things that I've been putting off doing, and never really had the confidence to do before, because you just don't know what's around the corner, do you? You never really know what's going to happen. So that was kind of what pushed me into
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
And that is courageous. I mean, the other side of the world, wow, just taking off. What would you say to someone listening who believes they've missed their chance?
I would like to encourage whoever it is that it's never too late, that if you have something that you desperately want to do, that I think it's really important to recognize that this life experience that we're here to have is meant to be a good one. It's meant to be a fun one, and it's not meant to be hard. And if the thing that you most want to do is the thing that lights you up the most and fills your heart with joy and gives you purpose in this lifetime, then that's got to be the reason why you're here. So I'd say go for it.
That's brilliant. I love that. So you are the author of the 12 Creative Steps to a Fulfilling Life. What inspired you to create that?
I created it because that was my experience going from who I was conditioned to be, as society had decided, who I was conditioned to be and how my life looked on paper, to how I wanted it to be and what I wanted to create for myself. And for me, it's been a journey. And I know that to go from here to there is always a journey. And it's a bit like with the books that I've written, to fictional novels as well. When you are taking your character of your book from the beginning of the story to the end of the story, they go on a journey, and they're never the same at the end of the journey as they are at the beginning of the journey. And they have to go through a transformation, and there's various things, challenges that they come up against, and things they have to deal with in order to alter and become something else. And so, because of my experiences writing stories in that way, I then wrote this journal, which is a 12-step journal that takes you people through the 12 steps that I believe it takes to get from your old life into the life you wish to live. And it starts out looking at your life and how it is, and it asks you what you would like it to look like. And then we go through the process of finding out what's standing in the way of that, the people in your life, the nemesis, the one thing that you tell everybody is the reason why you can't do the thing that you most want to do. It's usually because you can't afford it, because you've been told you have to do something else, because you grew up in an environment where you weren't allowed to speak your truth, where there's a million different stories that people have for why they are the way they are and why they can't do the thing that they most want to do. So then the process takes you through that, looking at that, and out the other side, what do you still need to clear from your cupboards, from the basement of your being, in order to move forward. And that it's got various steps, and at the end you get to who you are now, and what does your new world look like. So it is taking people through a process that I spent many years putting myself through, hopefully in a much more approachable and practical way.
For someone hearing about it for the first time, what exactly is the 12 Creative Step process?
So it is 12 steps, as the title suggests, and it takes people on a journey of self-discovery. So it starts at the beginning of your journey with what your life is like now, and then it takes people through the process of going from what their life is like now to what they'd like it to be like. So I get people to look at what their life is like now, and then what they'd like it to look like, and then what is standing in their way of that. And then there's various steps that look at the people in your life, and what it is that is the biggest thing that is standing in the way. What is your greatest nemesis? What is the excuse you tell people about why you can't do the thing you most want to do? Is it because you think you're too old, that you don't have enough money, you have too many responsibilities, that you've been told that you're not good enough? All the many stories that we tell ourselves of why we can't do the things we most want to do. So it's coming up against that, confronting that biggest challenge, and then moving through further steps to get to the point where you can reimagine, which is what you're doing. You're reimagining a life for yourself. And the fundamental part of the process, and the the journal, because it's in journal format, is to write and draw your way through it. Because when you write and draw, you're accessing a different part of your brain. And by getting it down on paper in front of you, you are seeing it down in front of you, and it's much easier to comprehend what it is that your life looks like when it's down. And some people write, some people prefer to draw. You don't have to be particularly good either. It's literally just to get the brain to work in a different way, and to give your sort of body and feeling self more of a voice.
That's brilliant. I love that. So why did you choose creativity as such a central part of the mythology?
Because I'm a very creative person, because I've always journaled. I have a whole mass of journals that I always write in. I find it a really amazing way to organize my thoughts and to get the feelings down on paper, so that when I read it back, it just changes my understanding of what I thought was going on. And when you're writing, it's creating a flow of thoughts you don't even know that you're really having, and it puts it down in front of you in a much more organized way. So I found that for myself, it's a really good way to get a greater understanding of how I feel about things. And so I wanted to incorporate it in the process, because that's what's really helped me.
That's really great. Yes. And it is from our experiences that we can do things.
Yeah.
You talk about creativity helping us to bypass the analytic mind. Can you explain what that means and why it's important?
So when we're just thinking about things, we're running our mind in an analytical way, and we're processing old thought patterns and old ideas, and we're replaying them over and over and over again on a loop. And it can kind of cloud how we actually truly feel about something. And how we feel about something is getting our body involved in the whole process. So we're not just from the neck up thinking, analyzing, trying to understand things from a sort of protective, how we've always lived our life way, but we're accessing a part of our body that brings our feelings into the mix as well. So when we're writing and drawing, we're not just thinking from up here, we're bypassing that, and we're going in at it from a different angle or perspective, as it were, and it involves feelings. And so when I'm working with clients, if I tell them to for example, take a look at their life now, and they write and draw it down on a piece of paper, they're very surprised by what that looks like compared to how they thought it was. It's just a very different perspective. And so when you access the feeling body versus the mental analytical mind, you find you've got two very different perspectives sometimes. And it's easier to look at it from, oh, I didn't realize I felt that way. It looked like my life was okay. I've got the this and I've got that and I've achieved this and I've achieved that, but I'm still kind of miserable. Why might that be? Why am I feeling stuck? Why am I feeling unhappy? I've got all the things that apparently I was supposed to have to experience the best life ever, but I'm still unhappy. And so that just helps people to access that part of themselves and understand it a little better.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. Being dyslexic myself, I'm very creative and right-brained. So yeah, color, image, creative, give me all of that. How does your process help people move beyond self-criticism and limiting beliefs?
The steps that I get people to work through are trying to understand what is underneath the story. So the story that I mentioned before, the nemesis, the thing that you go around telling everybody is the reason why you can't do the thing that you most want to do. There's a backstory. There's a past narrative that's going on in there about something that happened to you when you were a child, you were bullied at school, your parents neglected you, whatever your story, which is totally, understandable and and everyone has something that's happened to them. But generally what it then does is people a reason why they can't do the uncomfortable, because they've been teaching their body and their nervous system that there's a certain way to be, and that's how they feel the safest and most comfortable, even if actually it's not the place they most want to be. So the steps gets people to look at that. Who are the people in your life that perhaps haven't really got your back or aren't really supporting you, and you're making you feel less than? What are the areas of your life where you are suppressing yourself, where you're not feeling heard, where you're not able to really be the person that you most want to be? So there is various steps within the process that address these different points for people.
That's really great. Is there one step that people tend to struggle with the most?
Sometimes there is a step that is about rewriting your story, so the narrative, so the excuse that you've been giving, the thing that has been standing in your way, the story that you've been telling. I ask people to rewrite that in a positive way. So one of the steps is to change the story that you've been telling people about why you can't do the thing you most want to do, and how can you put a spin on it, twist it round to being in your favor and for your benefit, rather than being a victim of your circumstances. How can I change how I feel about a situation that happened to me when I was younger that made me feel like I didn't have a choice? How can I make that into something positive and come out of it as having achieved something really amazing and been really courageous, as you talk about? How can I make it that way? And some people are so immersed in the how something happened to them that it can be quite difficult to put a positive spin on it. But actually, if you can do that, if you can turn it around and recognize that that thing that happened to you happened in your favor, because now look at who you are as a result, then you can move forward from there with a more purpose and a more positive outlook.
Absolutely love that. That's really thought-provoking, and it's true. You can either live in the story or you can create another one that is better, that's going to be more fulfilling for you. What is one simple exercise listeners could start using today to reconnect with themselves?
So breath work is amazing. So just getting into the habit of breathing. And when I say breathing, it's very easy to say, and lots of people do, oh, take a deep breath and you'll feel better. But it's just as much about where in your body you're taking the breath. So breathing in the upper part of your body is what's called soldier breathing. And what it does is it activates the fight or flight mechanism within the body. So what you want to do is you want to breathe in the lower part of your body, in your belly. And when you can start to practice doing that, you just put your hands on your belly and you feel it rise and fall and expand and contract as you breathe, a bit like blowing up a balloon. And that focused attention inside your body starts to connect you with your body, so that when you're doing the 12 creative steps, which also involves breath work and visualization, so that when you are going through the process, you are able to access these feelings that are arising around your life, then these kind of breathwork exercises just reconnect you with the body, because lots of people are kind of living from the neck up and they've forgotten how useful this vessel that we're moving around is and how much information it is actually giving us. So that's usually the first thing I get people to do, is to get really familiar with breathing low in their body and in their belly, so that they're reconnecting with that part of themselves.
And that's interesting because we only use a snippet of our body really instead of the actual potential we have.
Yeah, true. And lots of people have just kind of forgotten how important that is. And so part of the 12 steps as well is utilizing the body and really starting to listen to what it's saying, because it has a lot of things that it needs to say, and we got very good at pushing it all down and getting on with our busy lives and actually not listening anymore.
Yes, I can understand that because life's so fast paced, but actually slowing down. I'm always telling my clients, slow down.
Yeah,
If you slow down, you can hear yourself. Can you hear what you're saying?
absolutely. Yeah.
You often speak about stepping into our human potential. What does that mean for you?
For me, as kind of as I mentioned before, it's realizing that I believe everyone came here with a purpose. I believe everyone came here with a gift, medicine, whatever you want to call it. And we kind of come here and we get all caught up and busy in how apparently we should live, and we forget about what how we want to live, and almost kind of what our mission here is. And so I think that if we can remember why we came within our lifetime, then we get an opportunity to have a far greater experience while we're here.
Yes, I agree with that. How can one begin discovering what their gift or purpose might be?
I think that it is quite often something that you really love doing as a child. That I think I often get people to think back to, even if it's just something really little, like, I don't know, collecting ants in the garden or something, or maybe playing with dolls or something. It gives you a little bit of an idea of where your kind of passion lies, where what you love. And it doesn't have to be anything monumental. It doesn't have to change the world. It can just be something that brings you joy, lights you up, makes you feel like life is worth living. And it can be just as simple as being really kind to people and connecting with them and helping someone across the road. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could be teaching kids at a school and really helping kids to navigate this crazy world that we live in. I mean, there's a million different things, but the most important part of it is how it makes you feel. Because if everyone could be in the energetic vibration and space of who who they are when they're most filled with love and joy and purpose, if we could all be that way all of the time, then the world would be a very different place. So it's more about how you feel and less about how it looks from the outside.
Can totally understand that. And like you say, yes, having that fulfillment for one.
Yeah.
In a world increasingly influenced by AI and technology, why do you believe creativity is more important than ever?
I believe that creativity is the one thing that humans can do that AI can't. Creating something from nothing, inventing something new. AI can regurgitate information that's already out there. It can't create from the heart and the soul, and it can't create with passion, and it can't do what I'm saying that people would do if they were doing the thing they most wanted to do and were filled with light and joy and love. And it, it, it's something that people emanate as they are doing it. And it's actually the process of creating that is more important than creation itself, because of the frequency with which we operate when we're doing the thing we most want to do. And 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 that is what impacts, I believe, what impacts the people, other people around you, and the people on the planet is doing that and being in that space. And AI can't do that. So whilst it's very useful in many, many ways, I like to think of AI as the servant and us humans as the master. And we get to spend more time discovering what it is that we want to do and what fills us with joy. And they get to do all the crappy jobs that no one wants to do. And I think that's the perfect way around, to be honest.
Yeah. Is that the heart and soul? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's the heart and soul.
What have been the biggest lessons you've learned about yourself through creating this work?
I think the biggest lesson is that it's an ongoing process. It's it's not a, you go through the process, you get to the end and everything's peachy. It is constant, it is ongoing, and it is a journey of discovery, of self-discovery. I think there's a real kind of ideology about how the thing you want to do most, you rush to the end and you get it and everything's perfect. I believe that the journey is all part of it, and the more we can enjoy the journey and realize that that is actually the true purpose, it's not the destination, then we can have a much more authentic, fulfilled kind of experience, because as you go along the journey, things reveal themselves. You get to work through stuff that causes you problems. It is an opportunity to work through things in an ongoing way, and it gets better as you go along. It's not like it's hard all the time, but I think it's important to enjoy the journey too.
Absolutely. And as you're evolving every day, and it will get easier, it's about repetitive sometimes as well, taking that practical action.
Yeah, true.
What role has intuition played in your own journey?
Very intuition led. I've always been pushed back against what I've been told because it didn't feel right. It's always been a, a part of what I was like when I grew up, and kind of ongoing, that I don't like to be told that this is the way it is. I like to ask lots of questions and find out the truth for myself, and get a really good feeling for what I believe to be the truth rather than take someone's word for it. So I tend to use my intuition a lot, because most of the time most people are not telling the truth.
And this day and age, that you can just realize that every day in a moment, really. It shows up a lot now. And we
Yeah,
are, as
exactly.
human beings, getting better. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think we need our intuition more and more now, because there's so much fakeness out there now. You really need to be discerning about what to believe and what not to believe, because if you listen to everything that you're told as you're scrolling online or whatever, then you're going to get all sorts of trouble. So it's better to really check in with what feels right for you.
Couldn't agree more. What are you most excited about in this next chapter of your life?
Well, I have two teenage boys. One has recently finished school, and one has got a few more years left. So as much as I've loved being their mum, I'm also looking forward to having a little bit more freedom, perhaps traveling quite a bit more, and being able to do what I do on the move, and just keep helping people, because I believe this is like a really incredible experience that we get to have when we're down here. And I think lots of people have forgotten how amazing it can be, and to help people remember that for themselves will be all part of what makes my life fulfilled too.
Sounds wonderful. And like you say, yeah, we do it's not even our bit, because it's never ending, but you'd like to have some of that time for yourself back. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally, yeah.
If there was one key takeaway you would want every listener to walk away with today, what would that be?
I think probably just what I've been saying quite a lot. It is just that I believe there is more to this life than perhaps some of us allow ourselves to believe, and to get curious about what that might be for you is probably the best advice I can give.
So where can the listeners find you, Emily, online, and your book?
I have a website which is 12creativesteps.com. I'm on Instagram, Emily Pattullo _ and I'm on Facebook, and I have a song that is available to listen to, which is called Here as Love, and my artist name is Emily Play. So yeah, I'm around.
And all the links, listeners, will be in the show notes, so do please go ahead and connect with Emily.
Thank you.
Emily, thank you so much for sharing your insights, your wisdom, and your stories with us today. By doing so, you've impacted so many people and truly made a difference. I'd really like to acknowledge you for that and appreciate you being here. Thank you, Emily
Thank
Pattullo.
you. Thank you so much for having me on. I've really enjoyed it.
My pleasure. So we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast here. What is your definition of courage?
My definition of courage is doing the thing that for you is the most uncomfortable thing you could do, that leads to something that fulfills you.